welcome everybody to our first panel session of today, which is on the living situation of Syrian refugees in Germany and in Turkey. The two countries host the two largest Syrian refugee populations, respectively. I mean, the one in Turkey is actually much larger than in Germany. That's something that I think many people in Germany are not always aware of. That, it's almost 5 times as large as in Germany. But we will look into that today and hear the stories of Razan, Ahmed, and Abdullah, 2 from Germany, 1 from Turkey. So Razan, let's start with you. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story and just technical detail? Yeah, we will continue with Ahmed afterwards and then with Abdullah. And then we have some time for a Q&A where we can, continue some of the aspects that you raised and, dig a little deeper into, your stories. Razan, please go ahead.
شكرا. أنا رزان عفيفي. أنا جهزت. Thank you very much. I'm Razan Afifi. I actually had prepared some notes in advance and I would like to read them aloud in order for you to better follow up and ask me concrete questions. Razan Afifi. Hi everyone, I greet you. At the very beginning, I want to thank you for inviting me here and for allowing me to be part of your very purposeful conference. At the outset, I would like to talk about a girl who came to Germany in the year 2005 to receive medication. This girl was in dire need of what science has reached over here in order to stand on her legs. But her journey of medication was a very harsh one. It took way longer than expected and then allowed for her to stay over here. The laws have neglected and overseen her need to stay here. So she was deprived of her right to apply for asylum. She had a really hard start, going through a lot of phases, starting with the look for medication, education, work, and she was transformed from someone who was in need of help and medication to someone who started providing assistance to others, especially after the waves of refugees who came to Germany starting 2015 and afterward. This little girl is me, Razan Afifi, Palestinian, Syrian, and now partly German. Born 1980 in Damascus. My journey with learning the German language, requiring language skills, started at the Institute of Ishraq in Hala, where I lived. It is a center specialized in educating Oriental languages, including Arabic. The students over there were my common denominator between me and the German population, were the common link. And from there, I started to get introduced to this community, which was crowned by my marriage with a German guy named Marwan. We gave birth to 2 children, first Mustafa and then Milad. When I gave my elder child this name, there has only been a few Arabs or few people of Arab origin here in Germany, but this has changed very quickly. So it got very common to me. I got used to being asked question, why did you give your son the name of Mustafa? Don't you fear that he would suffer afterwards, that he would be discriminated again? I asked back, why should he suffer? He is a German boy, born in Germany, living in Germany, and getting raised here. But my answers were not really convincing. And I started to realize that, just the name can become a burden to his bearer. At least sometimes. I remember once that we were looking for a new home to move in, my husband and I. And the owner of this home called me straight away after having read my name and told me that he doesn't want to rent his apartment, his property, to foreigners because he had bad experience in Berlin. And I answered, all right, and I don't want to rent an apartment from someone who is a discriminator. So how are we to change something fundamental between property owners, in the relationship between property owners and people who seek the rent? This is not an individual problem. I realized afterwards, in many occasions, after volunteering to provide assistance and help to newcomers who looked for a place to live in, that this is not the only obstacle they face. From the very beginning, from this phase of asking asylum, after coming to Germany straight away, they are challenged by a huge amount of papers and documentation that requires their signature, with instructions that are written in Germany and that are very complicated and very hard to understand for someone who doesn't speak German. There comes a question to my mind, actually. Why don't we work on providing translated versions of these documents and papers, translated into a number of languages as required, into Arabic, into Turkish, etc.? The atmosphere is full of bureaucratic routine, and the German population is the first population to suffer from that routine, even more than newcomers. Then we go to the job center and to other places where I really perceived more than one time to which extent migrants are being treated with without any respect, only on the ground of being foreigners, on the ground of being non-Germans. And I perceived a huge difference whenever my German husband was at my side, was by my side. The very same officer was all of a sudden someone else. So I learned more and more, and I realized that, of course, everything is not to be divided into black and white, that there are a lot of shades of gray, and that we cannot really say or claim that life over here is only black. But nevertheless, asylum seekers bear within their cheeks and within their breasts a huge amount of anxiety. Why? Maybe because they come from countries where they are not treated with respect, countries that don't treat their own population with respect. Maybe because they are afraid of this bottom-down treatment that they receive over here. In only a few exceptional cases, people find it easy to live here. I, of course, don't want to compare living in Syria with living in Germany, because we, at the end of the day, came here to look for safety and to look for a new perspective to live in. And we may not forget what we have been through in the inside of Syria. But in our countries, citizenship was nothing we were familiar with. It is really new to us to be granted the right of citizenship over here. But at the very same time, we get the feeling, get the impression that we are a second-class citizen with less privileges. and maybe the same amount of rights. So the life of an asylum seeker is either hard or harder, actually. I am reading aloud. I hope you can follow, though. So excuse my reading skills. In any case, those who hold certificates from university are sometimes challenged by the need of reorientation on the job market over here, or enrolling again at university in order to have a job perspective, career perspective. So in any case, I would like to highlight that asylum seekers need to receive assistance and support in a wide array of perspectives, socially, politically, legally, in terms of education, in order to close the gap between newcomers and the German population. Organizations working with refugees can not only aim at securing their income and secure them a place to living and provide them food security. No, because sometimes they receive the income on behalf of those and benefit from them. So I suggest to have government-led programs that practice some oversight, that control organizations working with refugees. I don't want to touch upon only financial advantages for refugees. No, we need to secure moral advantages, legal advantages, etc. The elections we had here in Germany a few days ago have came up with results that showed that Sachsen and Sachsen-Anhalt managed to provide a high number of votes to the far right, actually. So it is only logical that migrants prefer to move away from Eastern Germany to the West. And this is something very worrying. Do they do so because they perceive some kind of emptiness, or are they put to such an extent under pressure, to an extent that makes them leave the place of which they thought would become their safe haven? We need to have mechanisms of oversight that provide logical support, that provide neutral support, in order to alleviate their situation and in order to make life better for everyone who lives here in Germany, in order to provide results that stand upon accepting cultural differences. And this is something I realized in the course of my work at different organizations. Mental problems asylum seekers might face do not receive the necessary attention from German institutions. They were teared away from their homeland, and this leaves very deep scars within them. And we have a lot of cases I experienced myself that might be crystal clear to even normal people, non-professionals. Anxiety disorders, depression, isolation, social isolation, introvertism. And I don't really mean to say that each and every asylum seeker suffers from mental problems, but if someone suffers such pain, this pain only leaves scars, cannot but only leave scars. I lived through and experienced a high number of cases with women, for example, who failed to find work here, who were sexually abused from their partners or have experienced violence in their relationships. And now I came up with my own project, actually, dedicated to children with special needs, irrespective of their nationality, of their background. And I started with the first steps towards implementation of this project. I opened a gallery, a arts center in Halle, where I live, and I look to share this place, open the doors of this place to children in order to provide them a safe haven through arts. I want to reckon that Germany has a lot of beautiful faces, a lot of beautiful sights, but there still are these challenges, these hurdles that stand in the way of people who seek a free and safe and secure and stable life. There is this quotation I want to tell you here. You cannot ask me a question, but give me answers. Thank you very much, Razan Afifi.
Razan,
sorry,
so
I
much.
need to listen to the interpretation. I don't hear you. Thank you too.
Well, then let's continue now with a perspective from Turkey with Ahmed. Ahmed, can you hear us?
Yeah. Okay.
Is your camera on? Can you turn it on? Ah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
First of all, I would like to say that I am Ahmed Soum. I'm a Syrian refugee. Sorry, the sound is jammed.
Well, I think, Ahmed, we need to, your connection is not strong enough. So let's move to Abdullah now and come back to you. And if it's not better, then we'll try without the video. But Abdullah, then let's continue with you. Abdullah.
Hello, marhaba.
Hello. I'm Abdallah Saji, and I live in Germany. Have been living here for 6 years in Germany, in Hanover. I am currently, and I am a student here, and I especially in the field of media. And I would like to say that I am very grateful to Mr. Afifa that they was so frankly speaking about reality. And of course, we see that we have many young people and refugees here who experience the same stories. And I can say that I have also come across this. That means especially that here in Hanover, I have been here now for 1 month, and I'm here as a student. I'm in a VG with other students, and I have in my room pictures of Jesus, and I'm personally, I do not, I'm not very religious, but I have no problems with religions, but of course I have some mental problems as well, and I remember that somebody came in and told me, this is exerts mental pressure, such pictures, I don't like them, please take them off. But I said, no, why shouldn't we leave them here? And the owner of the flat insisted in taking it off. And so I got quite angry about this. And I reminded him of the German culture, which is open. And so I said, this position is not natural, it's not normal. This had a great impact on me. Of course, there are other things, other problems. First, at the beginning, learning the language and so on. And also the lack of money, but this is now better. But unfortunately, we are living now in the year 2021, and so the situation has been improved, and so that's I'm very grateful of.
Thank you, Abdullah. Let's now try if Ahmed's bandwidth is strong enough now. Yeah.
Let us try again. Do you hear me? No, not properly.
I think let's try it without camera, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The first is that. Oh, sorry.
Still not working.
Crackling and jamming.
Okay. Well, then let's continue with a couple of questions then, and I hope, Ahmed, maybe you can move to another room or something to try to increase your bandwidth, and yeah, and then we can try to get back to you later on. But yeah, then sorry, Ahmed. It would be great to hear your story. Yeah, and yeah, you could try with microphone or headset as well, but I get the indication here that it's the internet connectivity that is not strong enough. Okay, but we're trying to get him also via phone on here. Okay, then my first question, because I haven't seen any question here, is like, what, and I mean, Razan, you beautifully kind of connect, you know, like told your story, like your challenges, but also what gives you hope and how you get support. I would like to kind of, yeah, look a bit deeper into that. What are you, Abdullah, as well, doing in terms of self-help? What helps you to deal with the situation and the many different hardships that you experience while living in your new home?
هلا أنت بتسمعني؟ هل تسمعني؟
Do you hear me?
Yes.
In my personal opinion, I think that there has been a change in the infrastructure. But I think there should be more of that. If politicians would do more in the way that they asylum seekers can really integrate themselves, not only giving them money or material support. So, for example, the translation of all the papers and of all the paperwork and so in their languages, this would help a lot. And when I came here and I wanted treatment for the children, it was very difficult. Even in English, it was difficult to interact with the specialist people there. So it is difficult for you if you don't find anybody who understands you. And of course, some people are also hesitant, but especially I see also some kind of racism when there is a woman with a headscarf or so, and I also have people seen who have spit on the or they touching you, or then you are, and they tell you think what I don't know what they mean, and so I think that the organizations here in Halle, I expect that they make it easier for us. Sometimes when I have to do something in one of the authorities, that there are 100 people or more. So especially also mental support for the refugees, there could be more. There is really a high number who need this and who need support and assistance. Have you understood what I mean, or do you have more questions?
No, I thought that was yeah, great. But yeah, I was also trying to find out a bit more about what works best for you personally to get strength in during difficult or challenging time. But maybe Abdullah, we'll go to you first, and then we come back to Razan. Abdullah, what in terms of self-help, what helps you? What has worked for you while since coming to Germany?
ما أعتقد ما فهمت السؤال. ممكن تعيده؟
I don't understand.
Well, I mean, like what are practices or routines or things to kind of support yourself, build, like a support system for yourself to deal with difficult situations?
نعم للأسف كنت أضطر.
Yes, unfortunately, I was compelled to stay at home first to learn the language. Of course, the language is the key of another country, and you have to be understood here. And this was the prerequisite. And so from the very beginning, I had to learn the language and then to try to interact, to integrate with others, especially by talking to them, and also to try to come to the point. That means that they understand we should respect everybody. I also respect that they respect us, and also to understand the German culture where we have now arrived. And I think the first thing to find out how to deal with people here. That means also to understand what are the aspirations of people, what do they expect from me, and some kinds. It was a bit funny when I heard quite violent music I was sitting to recover, also mentally to recover. I was sitting at home. And of course, when you have left Syria, you need some time to think and to recover. But sometimes there's a music which is very stressful. What I would like to tell, what Abdullah wanted to say also, this is to respect others, to respect each other. So, of course, language is difficult, but this is easier than learning to respect each other, to understand each other also. Nobody else has asked me about myself, where I am coming from, what are my problems or my issues. Why do I, for example, choose this cup? But this is my decision, but nobody is interested in these things. Yes, this is what I also have experienced, Razan.
Thanks. Yeah, really like the spirit. Maybe another aspect that we could discuss is, I mean, Razan, you are living in Halle, which is a mid-sized city in eastern Germany, and Abdullah, you are living in a slightly bigger but also mid-sized city in Western Germany. We just had actually last week in Halle the 31st celebration of German reunification, which was a big festivity, and that brings us to the question, like, how are regional factors inside of Germany playing in when it comes to your experiences between like east and west, between north and south, between mid-sized city and larger cities, when it comes to access to support networks? Razan, do you want to start?
Yes, I start. This day, we had a guest in our town, Angela Merkel, and she was there in a church, and Angela Merkel here, in this context, I have to talk about what happened in Halle, of how many racists are there and extremists are there. Sachsen-Anhalt, of course, we know that last elections the right-wing party has won in Sachsen-Anhalt, and so in Germany, of course, this has drawn the attention of Germans. And in East Germany, there's no integration and there's no respect to others and of others, and so this is a bit special, I would say. This difficult to explain this, especially when you see that there's such a conflict between right-wing and left-wing people, and in Halle especially, the proportion of racists is relatively high. And of course, also this has its. There's always a pressure, also some open pressure, like when they are shouting "Raus, raus" or something like this. So Halle and the Sachsen-Anhalt, sometimes I think they want to say that the Germans are the best in the world or something like this. And the headscarf, this is something like no brain, or I don't know, I don't understand. I don't have to add anything to this. and especially concerning these parties, I know this AfD party, it is very strong in the east of Germany. And at the beginning, the first 5 years, I lived in Sachsen-Anhalt, in Magdeburg. And unfortunately, at that time, in fact, and frankly say, life was, I didn't like the life there. And it was difficult to live there for 5 years. And some people asked me, how was it possible for you to live there within this racism? Of course, there's really some kind of fleeing out of this area. I have friends, he is a musician, or he was a musician in Halle, and now he's in Hamburg. And I have the feeling that he is a... He said, this is my homeland, but now he has gone. And in Halle, I often see that that there's some kind of gute Laune, and then it changed into the completely different situation. And this happens suddenly. And I was there in Sachsen-Anhalt, and I had 2 jobs within 1 month. And I was working with an organization in Halle Saale, which was also supporting refugees there. And I have then often applied for jobs very often there in Sachsen-Anhalt. Sorry.
Now it seems that Abdullah is frozen.
Don't hear him.
Well,
then I
Razan,
did a vocational training.
Okay. So are you, Abdullah? I think Abdullah's connection is still with 2 weeks. So Razan, maybe just continue. We come back to Abdullah later on.
يعني أنا ما بدي أكون سوداوية.
I do not want to be too bleak concerning Halle, but in 2016 I made a drama which was anxiety is not a sickness, and we did this drama. We showed it in the biggest theaters here with refugees, with foreigners, and I think every time there were between 400, 450 people in the audience, and this was quite successful. So I also would like to talk about the success. That means when and one can find also a development when we compare 2016 to 2021. And in the beginning, of course, I couldn't understand the language, and it is so that people have learned a lot, have worked a lot. We had problems, we had difficulties, but there's a very big development now. And when you now knock at the door there and you say you need this or that, of course there is still pressure, but people are more more open-minded. And Syrians, Iranians, Afghans, and so on, they have already also achieved some success in many fields. So with this society, and there is also some kind of integration, and my work has, of course, helped me in integrating it. Especially by art, whether in the theater or now in other parts, other kinds of arts.
Razan, thank you. So yeah, I'm taking, like, just to summarize, I'm taking here from this that there are, or that both of you have experienced a certain set of regional disparities when it comes to access and also attitudes of people in Germany towards you, and yeah, a difference between larger cities, of course, and smaller cities and the rural areas, and yeah. Okay, then we have one question from the audience that I would like to ask now. And then I think for the last 10 minutes, ideally, we can go back to Ahmed. But yeah, the question is, how are services for refugees made public in your towns? And do people know what kind of services are offered? What kind of facilities would you need? And how would you like to be informed about them? So that is like the second part of the question, which is, of course, more connected to what you would need, and what would work for you as a good practice. The question was asked by Katarina. Abdullah, do you want to go first?
I think I prefer for Razan to begin.
Okay, sure. Razan.
So what kind of services are offered? How are they made public? The problem is that we do receive services, that we have access to services, but they need to be much more spread over the media, because we have cultural programs, for example. They are there, but media still needs to play a better role, a bigger role, and to promote them. This promotion, as the aspect of promotion is missing, in the sense that positive information is also being spread. And instead of that, the media agencies and media channels prefer to spread scandals and other kinds of information, let's say. Abdullah, for example, or others who got started, who opened up their centers and played a role in order to spread the Arab culture, and try to maybe make a better use of media or media channels in that sense, social media especially. Thank you very much, but I still don't think I've answered the second question. Maybe you can remind me of the second question.
Abdullah, are you ready? So yeah, it's about how, I mean, just like in theory, basically, like ideally, how would you like to find, what would work for you if you think about like how to access information on how? Abdullah? Yeah, so the question is basically about, like, if you think ideally, how could support be, kind of, what would really help you is the first thing. And the second thing is like, how would you like to find out about that, that this exists? Because I think what's like kind of indicated there as well is that there are a certain set of how or support networks available in or offerings in Germany that a lot of people are often not aware of, and which offerings would work for you, and what would work for you in terms of like how that you would actually find out about them, that they exist. But Razan, maybe you want to go first.
يعني كما قلت إذا نحن as I said, if we provide for translated paperwork, that would be of a great help, irrespective of the kind of institution. Even if I have a flyer in my hand, if I hold a flyer and I read it in my own language, in my mother tongue, that would attract my attention even more, and I would inhale way more knowledge and way more information, and I would take more with me. So maybe more translation work is required. Mais, for example, a friend of mine, she works at an organization named Salam, Peace, and they offer lots wonderful offerings, important offerings, even to those who are in need of mental support, psychological support, integration into Germany, etc. But she only spreads the word via phone. She doesn't even issue flyers. That would be the simplest thing, to have some flyers at a stand or in a booth or at a board at universities, for example, or refugee camps or whatsoever, in order to spread the word in a more effective way. So more brochures, more flyers, and just to get closer to the migrant population, you know, through translation and through their own mother tongue. Yes, this is something I second, and I would like to add something as well. I personally, we are a media company that makes videos for TV, and unfortunately, what we work on is rather what I can describe as a scandal. For example, someone killed someone, there's a murder, or there is a bad story, there is something controversial to put the spotlight on. But if there's a success story, you won't hear a word about it. And this is something we really miss in the German media and on German TV. Success stories among Syrian refugees, because we get to know them, we get to hear of them through Facebook groups, etc., WhatsApp groups, but not through the German media, not through the German TV. Success stories of Syrians, we rarely really hear of them via German channels. Yes, but this is something you would find in each and every culture, everywhere actually. Bad news are easier to disseminate and are easier to spread. And the purpose is not really to support refugees behind media work. This is a completely different topic. But yeah, I speak of Halle and I speak of Eastern Germany because I've never lived there. I just heard of friends that life there is way better. When I came here, I was really compelled to extend my residence permit. So that was something very important for me to receive the surgery to get my knees operated. And this is something that was totally neglected. They didn't pay any attention to this fact, to the fact that I need treatment, I need medication. It is an exceptional situation. But they told me at the Ausländerbehörde, you have your resident permit. When your time is up, your time is up. You need to go back home. So I needed to go to a local newspaper to make pictures of myself, make pictures of my knee, and in order to make my voice heard on my own way, in order to say, I cannot get back to Syria this way. Even if you put laws above the individual, this can't happen. You can ease the ties of law a bit, because of course the law would say that I would have to get back home, but I need treatment, and this is something very hard for me to face as a Syrian or as a Palestinian who needs to get back to Syria and who needed a huge amount of time in order to come to Germany at first. Now, of course, my situation has changed. I am an artist. I have my visual artist studio or atelier. I was compelled to go the hard way, to take things the hard way. So this is a comparison between 2005 and now, but you see, it left some scars behind.
Thank you so much. I think we're still trying to find a way to connect with Ahmed in Turkey. But so far, unfortunately, we haven't found a way. But so, yeah, we have to focus on the German perspective for a bit more. I think another aspect that I would like to hear your opinion about is the Syrian community. I mean, we talked about that a little bit yesterday as well. To what extent is the Syrian community unified? Can you speak of one community, and is that something that where a lot of offerings for help can be found? Razan.
Of course, I don't know if we can speak of a Syrian community here, a unified Syrian community. This is something that you would not find. I think it's something we need to delve more into. It's as a Syrian or as Palestinians, we are individuals who get introduced to themselves over here. Some people from Hasaka, some people else from elsewhere. We are completely different. We are totally different. Despite the fact that we share the same nationality, we have completely different identities. That's why we still need to get introduced to each other, learn more about each other in order to speak about a common identity. Yes, actually, of course, you experience racism, discrimination over here. So you cannot even speak about or use the term Syrian community, because even Syrians among each other, they mock each other because of the dialects, for example. They laugh at the dialects of the others. So it is a controversial issue.
Thanks for sharing this. Another aspect is, or to take it, maybe end this on a more positive note and a more optimistic note. I mean, if you think about a younger version of yourself, what would you like to tell them, or generally newcomers into your situation? What would be helpful and has worked for you very well in coming and in adapting to a new life? What would you have? Yeah, what have you got out of this? It's a difficult question, so maybe I give you a couple of seconds to sort. But Razan, do you want to start?
Yes, it is a very deep question. It is a very lovely question, though. And it is a question that comes to my mind, actually. I'm 41 now, and when I came here to Germany in 2005, I was still 25 years young. So honestly, I was hoping not to reach Germany, not to come to Germany back then. And it surprised me, actually. Me, as an Arab girl, I was looking at Europe as the wage of humanity and humanism, and the roots of humanism, and the place of freedom of living without any restrictions and ties. Of course, you know that the Arab countries and the communities over there impose a lot of restrictions, and especially on women. So you hope to come to Europe and you hope to flee these problems and this pressure you are exposed to as a female, as a woman. Over here, you come and face the fact that you are being declined. So you ask yourself, where should I go? I'd rather than prefer to get back to Syria, to stay at Syria. Of course, things changed because the country became war-torn, and now I'm married, now I got 2 children. But back then, I usually used to look at Razan and what Razan had achieved in Syria, and versus Razan, who is new here in Germany and needs to start at the scale of 0. And it was a very, very difficult choice for me. I was hoping back then to stay in Syria, to get back into Syria. And Syria used to be more beautiful in my eyes. And imagine this against the background that I am a Palestinian. So I actually used to be a refugee in Syria, and I'm now a refugee in Germany. So I have nothing that I can call home or that I can count myself to, you know.
Thank you, Razan. Abdullah, I saw you were following quite intensively. What would you like to add? Would you subscribe to many of the things that Razan said? Although I do think that you are not hailing from the Palestinian community of Syria. You are muted, Abdullah. Now it's
أكيد.
شكرا
رزان.
Thank you, Razan, for raising some beautiful aspects, actually. What I would like to add is that I'm someone who grew in a war-torn country. So I left Syria at the age of 10. I haven't seen, other than that, I've lived in war, and then I left the country. When I reached Turkey, I was 15 years old. I started to work straight away, and it was a hard work for someone in my age. Then I left for Germany, and unfortunately, now I long for some things, because here you live as a foreigner, and living as a foreigner and missing your homeland and feeling that you don't belong to this country is something that I'm obsessed of. Sometimes to the extent that I miss the sound of war, you know, of planes, of fight jets. And this is totally crazy, I know, but I miss the past. You realize that you are here someone who is not accepted, who is not welcomed, and you start to become nostalgic about your past. Interpreter's remark, there's a connection interruption.
Yeah, I think, Abdullah, we couldn't hear the last bit, I think. but yeah, well, I would like to, Abdullah, do you want to repeat the last sentence? If not, because it was just a poor connection, but if not, it's also fine.
خلاص تمام أنا ما بدي أضيف شيء.
I don't need to add or repeat, no problem. Okay. I think I'll leave it that way.
Well, thank you too so much for sharing all of these personal experiences and insights. That was really quite extraordinary. Thank you too. And yeah, unfortunately, we're limited now to the German perspective. But yeah, I hope it was as interesting for you as for me as I mean, I took a lot out of this, but we will get a video from Ahmed from Turkey, and so we'll have a little bit of the Turkish perspective as well. Yeah, we will now have a little break, and then you have your breakout sessions. So basically the first one is on female perspectives, then we have the legal situation, also something that we touched upon here. Then we have COVID pandemic, something that we briefly talked about yesterday, and that one will also be streamed on the live stream on YouTube. And then we have one other issue that we talked about briefly as well, which is there such a thing as one Syrian community in Germany and Turkey? Yeah, I think you all signed up for them, and we will then meet for a last joint session afterwards. There will be a half an hour break in between though. So thank you so much, and looking forward to see you later.